Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hi, everyone. Hi, Claudia. How are you?
Hi. Great.
Good. I'm so excited to have you on the show. For everyone out there, I met Claudia Rivas about, what was it, like maybe a month ago? Has it been
Yeah.
that long already? Yeah, about a month ago. And it was like an impromptu call from a mutual friend out in the Bay Area in California. And I love Alex. He was like, you guys need to talk, and it was a 10-minute FaceTime basically, where we were just introduced, and so we immediately knew we had to dedicate time for a longer conversation because it wasn't enough. It's like we were thirsty for more, right, Claudia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Poor
was just
Alex.
so
I felt bad for him because he was like,
why because
oh, yeah,
yeah,
Alex is here.
so yeah, because it was like, yeah, sorry, bro. We're like here, right? We're connected. But anyway, it was just great, and it was just so special because it was a celebratory moment, and I think when he introduced you or introduced us to each other, just finding out, this major milestone of being named senior vice president at Merrill Lynch and becoming the first Latina and immigrant to reach this position at your firm in the Bay Area, to me, it's like automatically we became comadres, right? We became
Mhm.
sisters in that moment. And I was like, dude, this is epic. Yeah, I was like, this is like epic. Talk to me. And I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know how in the world, and then you're so young to me anyway, you're like young Latina, in the Bay Area, which is so hard. It's no secret to the world how Silicon Valley is just so, attainable for or to penetrate really, for people of color. And so I just instantly, was inspired by you, was admiring you, was celebrating with you, and I just needed to know more. And then we set up the meeting like for a few days later. We were on the phone for a little over 2 hours, and I'm like, Claudia, I need to have you because this is what I'm talking about. These are the stories that really demonstrate, right? The talents and the drive and the grit,
Mhm.
of communities that normally don't gain access, to the C-suite, or do, but it takes forever, and
Uh-huh.
staying connected, right? Because you're very, very, that's what I think I love the most about you, that you're so real and so connected to your roots and to placing or acknowledging, where that strength and that determination came from. And I just wanted, and so in essence, I just wanted you to talk to me about, the beginning of your career, about your life, experiences, and about abuela Trinidad, your grandma Trinidad,
Mhm.
because you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talk to me about, how did you get into, not into the numbers game, right, of wealth management and
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, this whole world, right, that's foreign to many Latinos because we're not taught to, manage money, basically,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
how did
Yeah.
this all happen for you?
Well, like you said, I do always like to acknowledge where I come from. it's one way that I like starting off most of my conversations is, "Hi, I'm Claudia. I was born in El Salvador, but raised in Mexico and San Francisco." Because to
Mhm.
me, it's really important that uh, I'm constantly connected to that story because I'm
Mhm.
very proud of where we come from. I'm very proud of our communities. And I always acknowledge at the end of the day, what's more important is your friends and your family. And it's sometimes easy to lose what's important when you're around money all day, talking about
Mhm.
it all day, all the time.
Mhm.
And it's just that's only a portion of what's important, right? It is important because it allows you to do a lot of stuff, but yeah, to me, community and where I come from is extremely important. Um, my grandmother came to San Francisco in the 60s, and she left her children in El Salvador for 7 years. She had four kids over there. And it wasn't until last year that I actually found out, while getting right. Sometimes I write about my life and um, what I've done, but also to remember my family that is living. And so I was interviewing my uncle, who was the baby of the family, and I said, Theo, I was like, what do you remember from San Francisco growing up? And he said, working from home. um, I said, "What do you remember from coming to San Francisco in the '80s, which is when we came?" And he's like, "Oh, I had a great time." And I said, "You came as a teenager?" He's like, "Yeah, my mom left me when I was 7 years old, and I didn't see her again until she was 14." And I was like deeply moved by that. And I couldn't stop thinking about it because I was like, I can't even imagine like having to separate myself from my children. I was like, so I always acknowledge that and I put things in perspective of what does it mean hard? What does hard mean? And
Mhm.
so I was dealt with some I would say pretty challenging cards in my earlier life, where which is one of the things we talked about, that I wanted to run away from home because I was having just a lot of difficulty living at home with my family. And so I was going to high school in Mexico, and a lot of my friends were getting married at 15, 16 years old, and that was very normal. And I thought, this is my way out. And in that sort of, I would say, a reaction based out of fear.
Mhm.
Um, I tried running away with somebody that I barely knew, and I ended up getting pregnant, and I was 16. And so this happened in Mexico. I wasn't given uh, options, so my grandmother brought me back to the U.S. And the only thing I knew was that I had to figure out how to provide a better life for this child that I was going to have. And so I've just been extraordinarily lucky. When I came back and I lived with my grandmother, I had a boss who was from Puerto Rico who said, come live with me for a little bit, till you save money, and then you could get your own apartment. Um, and so I thought, well, because I'm the first one to go to college in my family, I thought my thinking was so basic. I'm going to study something that has to do with computers, like a typewriter, like I and not or I don't I think my understanding of what education was so extremely limited. My grandmother had been an orphan; she never went to school, so it wasn't like it was something that I had access to. And at the same time, I loved school. It was always been my safe haven and something that I've enjoyed and really love education. And so then I met some people in my classes who said, Claudia, if you really want to make a better life for yourself, you should really continue to go to college. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? And like, how old do you have to be to, like, a normal person that doesn't have children graduate from college. Oh, usually it takes 4 years. And the reason why I asked that was because when I was a young mom, I got a lot of backlash from
Mm,
not only my family, from communities of like, you ruined your life. You're
mhm,
by yourself and you have a kid. And in my mind, I was like, but, and again, going back to the age thing, is like, I know 30-year olds that don't have their things in order.
right.
And what's the difference? So to me, it was a little bit of being stubborn. And so I was like, well, I don't know, but I need to make sure that I have a better standard of living. And if they say that school's the way, I'm going to get that done. So I was, again, I'm so lucky in a lot of ways because my friend was, like, she took me to Mills, which is an all women's college, and she said, I think you would do really well here. And she was spot on. Coming from where I'd come from and living in Mexico and seeing a lot of the position that women are in and
Mhm,
don't have access to opportunities, to me, this was like a magical land of opportunity. And so
mhm,
I was surrounded by very, very intelligent, very competitive, smart, intelligent women that really supported each other. And I had an unbelievable support system with my professors, who acknowledged what I was working on. And then one of the deans said, "You should go and get your master's." And I was like, "Well, okay." It's like, that sounds easy. It wasn't easy. But I got into it because I thought, well, it was easier for me to write about numbers, in
mhm.
terms of, because I'd come back from living in Mexico. I didn't feel that comfortable speaking English, but the
Yeah.
numbers were easier to talk about them because it's just
Mhm.
telling the story about data. And
Right.
so, I just kind of went with the flow, and I think it was a little bit about being stubborn. So I studied economics because they didn't have a business degree, because I thought that's what I needed to study. Again,
Mhm,
I didn't even know what a bachelor's was. I didn't know what tuition was. I
mhm,
didn't know anything. So I kind of just learned as I went. I
mhm,
also paid for my education on my own. And then I worked, went to school, had my son. I ended up meeting my partner later on, who later became my husband. Um, and while I was in school and working, I was at an economic development firm, and I ran into somebody that had was one of the first in at Harvard Business School, who was African American to be admitted there in the '60s.
mhm,
Um, so at that point, I knew what Harvard was, at least. Where, I don't know, but I guess
mhm.
I knew about it. And I ran up to him and I said, "Excuse me." Oh, first of all, they told me not to talk to him because he's so busy. So for
Mhm.
somebody like me, "Don't do that" means do that.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yes, and you know where you got that from, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're ballsy like your grandmother, right?
yeah, yeah. I was like, like, whatever, whatever.
Right.
And so I ran up to him and I said, "Excuse me, I heard you went to Harvard in the '60s." And he's like 6'5", tiny as this little girl, and I'm like looking up to him. Like, and he's like, "Yeah, so what?" I said, "I've never met anybody that's African American or person of color who's gone to an Ivy League school." And
Mm.
he's like, and I said, "Well, I was hoping that maybe I could take you out to coffee. You could tell me about what it was like." And he's like, "What do you mean what it was like?" I said, "Well, wasn't it hard because you were black?" He's like, "Sweetheart, it's hard for a lot of people,
Mm.
even poor white people." I said,
Mhm.
"What?"
Mhm.
"It's hard for poor white people?" I was like, He's like, "Yes." He's like, "It's hard for a lot of people." And he's like, and I've written recommendation letters for people from all backgrounds. And so that alone opened my mind.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
And I got him as a mentor. I took him and I said, "I need you to tell me how to get things done because you have been to all the right places." He was at Goldman, he was at Morgan, he was doing these really big real estate deals. And I said, "I need you to give me the stepping stones to figure out how to get in." And he said, "Everybody that graduates from Harvard goes into finance."
Mhm.
And so, I did a lot of informational interviews. I made a lot of mistakes. And so by the time that I went to do my interview, I was ready. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's how I got in. I knew that I loved numbers and fascinated by numbers, but really my passion is connecting with people. I am
Mhm.
truly fascinated uh, of what motivates people, their story, how they get things done, how they think, not only of power but of privilege too. I'm fascinated by all backgrounds. And
Mhm.
so to me my job combines those two extraordinarily well, and I was really lucky to have done that work beforehand to land in a space that I'm very happy and passionate about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so it's almost like in your journey, you found those mentors along the way, but then also, even though you're stubborn, you
Mhm.
listened, and followed
Mhm.
through on the advice that they gave you,
Yeah,
starting with your, the Puerto Rican boss and the Black Harvard graduate, that you admired
yeah,
so. And then, just approaching them, because I think that's one of the big things that a lot of um professionals, that identify as Black or brown, and also business owners, right? Um, lack or say that they haven't found, and it's that mentor, right? That person that can guide them and point them in the right direction and weigh in, with how do you say, non-judgmental, advice,
yeah,
right? And yeah, to help then you have, for you to have the tools then to make the right decisions or determine your path based on that insight from someone that might have gone through that before, or that sees it
yeah.
from outside and not,
Mhm.
from inside the how do you say, the chaos or the confusion you might be in, that
Yeah,
happens to all of us. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then there's also that work ethic, right? That I know from, from having shared that time with you, really came from watching your grandmother Trinidad work, in like the hospitality industry, and really being consistent and
yeah.
diligent with her work, and then also exposing you. Tell me that story about how you would accompany her, to her workplace, and what that, experience was, every 2 weeks when she got you ready to head out the door to go into the city, right, on the
Yeah.
bus. Mhm.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that I always carry with me, all those memories, and I think, wait, I wanted to replicate her, right? I mean, I thought she was such an amazing person. Like I just loved her so deeply that she would wake up and drink her coffee in the morning and she'd have all her clothing and her makeup and everything ready, that I would do the same thing. I would like get my little clothing, wake up early and sit with her and also have café con leche, emulating this lady. And taking the bus downtown to uh like we talked about these contrasting worlds of coming from an immigrant kind of neighborhood, which was very which is what San Francisco used to be. It used to be filled with people from all over the world, and it was very blue collar and you have to imagine a place where you have all kinds of cultures. It was really a great place for opportunity, and so we would take the bus, and you'd see these contrasting themes all over the place of artists, of immigrants, of working class people, but also white collar people. It was just a mesh of everything. It was really extraordinary, I feel. And I feel really privileged by that opportunity. And so going into, the back of the hotel, of this very fancy hotel, and going in was something that I'm very proud of, and that I never realized or really thought about, sort of the division that existed between the front of the hotel and the underground that happens, um
Mm-hmm.
and these two worlds. And I guess it's all what you make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just very honored and proud to go with her to work
Mm-hmm.
and pick
And
up her
see that
check.
dynamic, and then also her working in a space also that was predominantly male. Also, because you told
Yeah.
me how she would
Well,
have
her
to help.
bosses were male. Yeah,
Yeah,
the bosses were male, but the women are the ones that do the laundry, and a lot of the immigrants, like a
yeah.
lot of Chinese women that were there, a lot of Latinas that were in the bottom. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but her bosses, she's like,
Yeah,
she didn't care.
she didn't care. No.
She always said things how they were.
Yes, I know. But then that also prepared you to see that there's a bigger world out there, and so then that, I mean, you call it being stubborn, but I think it's more of being determined, right? To push beyond perhaps the scope of what people, you as a single young mom, were capable of doing. And so here you are, right? Now in this
Yeah.
role, which I'm sure you walk into spaces and you probably get the, what is she doing here? Right? Or,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
All the time. I know.
Yeah.
Someone just called me an executive assistant. I was like, it's like, okay, I'm not.
Yeah, yes. But
Senior VP to you.
yeah, but that must be feel good. And I know that we struggle sometimes, right, as women of color, to own that, because
Yeah.
we've talked offline about this, about how even being able to step into talking about it with such confidence and assertiveness, it also was a
Yeah.
process for you to be able to, like just now casually joke about it, like senior VP to you, right? Like that just didn't happen. That, because we're confronted with this feeling of, oh, I'm being cocky, or I might be judged, or how were those feelings when first when you were announced and recognized as the president's club, because now you're like in an elite, also a group within
Otra liga. That's what my
otra
uncle said. Oh,
liga,
estás en otra liga.
yeah, I know. And I'm sure that you stick out like a sore thumb too, in the sense where, that you're,
Always, which I'm used to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because no one looks like you, right? So first, what was that feeling? What did you feel when you got notice, that you were going to be a promoted? And B, how did you transition from that feeling of like maybe not even embarrassment, it's like, uncomfortable that you were feeling? Tell me how you felt, on both ends, like the la alegría, right, the happiness, but then also like, how do I even deal with this, so what were those feelings like?
Well, I want to say something about these contrasting themes that I think that we've talked about, which is the humility, but also, you know, the standing up for yourself and being bold about your accomplishments,
And confident,
which is
right? Yeah. Hmm.
confidence. Yeah, I think these are very tough things to balance, right? And stubbornness. because I think when you're when you're breaking a lot of barriers, you have to, in my from my experience of what I've had to break a lot of stereotypes that I feel that have also um had to make a lot of people uncomfortable, including my own family.
Mhm.
Which was, I'm the oldest of my five siblings, and they're like, you got to take care of your family and work. And my thank God that my Puerto Rican boss was like, listen, you got to take care of your son first, and you got to take care of this. So it, that's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of
Mhm.
sacrifice because, and that I feel that that's also probably what was, in a way, hanging over me, that I had to acknowledge that when you're doing things that are not typical, you're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, whether it's your
Mhm.
family or your friends. And you got to keep going because you have to remember why you're doing things. In my case, it's because I needed to provide, a better standard of living for my family, and to honor what my grandmother brought us to this country for. And so, I think depending on what things you're doing, you're going to have to be uncomfortable, and you have to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And so
Mhm.
when I saw that I had qualified, I almost thought, well, what if I missed something? I was like, then I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, what if I missed something? What if I needed to do one more other thing? I was like, but I don't really feel that accomplished yet. Like, I don't feel comfortable in this title, but it is mine. I was like, why am I feeling this? And so,
Mhm.
um, I do, one of the things that I do that is very therapeutic for me is, music. That's why I love Mark Anthony. But when I go for a run, for example, part of what I'm thinking about that's motivational is rap, and hip hop culture, and growing up in this era of like Too Short, right? And so I had a conversation with my girlfriends about, I was like, you know what? I feel really awkward. I'm not really sure that I was ready to embrace this title. And I was like, proud. I told my family, and my family started crying. They were so proud and happy because
Mhm.
they know what this means.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, I was like, so then I was like, there was this high of like, oh my God, I made my family so proud. But I don't feel different either, which I don't think I should ever. But um, but that it depends on what I mean. But what I mean by that is that, I'm not going to change and think differently, but it's more of like acknowledging that we need role models, and that we need people to that look like myself to showcase our accomplishments as a way of giving inspiration to other girls who were like myself, who needed to look up to somebody,
Mhm.
that whether it's been, you know very, very challenging to get to the point where I've been, and it's never linear. And so I think that's really important, is to understand um, these two contrasting themes of like humility, but also acknowledging, and in a way humble bragging about your accomplishments, that they are more than what you think. And
Mhm.
it's not that these things are not only about yourself, and that you should be proud to share these things, because other women who have shared inspired me. And anyway, so I was listening to Megan the Stallion.
Mhm.
And it clicked. I know it sounds so crazy, but she says one sentence in there. She's like that she doesn't she's trying to she says, "I'm tired of men telling me how to think and everybody else." And I
Mhm.
thought, yeah, why? I was like, who cares? I'm like, this is yours, Claudia. Own it, Like,
Mhm.
um, yeah, who cares? Like, this is your title. Obviously, you earned it, and and if I don't own it, I'm acknowledging in a terrible way that I should be at a lower energy level to adapt and make people comfortable. That
Yes,
was very interesting to me.
yeah.
And it's sort of like, well, if you feel uncomfortable, that's on you, not on me, right?
Exactly.
Because I'm like, this thing that I've always fought for about, because I consider myself a feminist, about patriarchy, I was almost feeding into it by not feeling comfortable because I was like, I don't even want to put it in my signature because they're going to feel weird that I'm like this title now. That's literally what I was thinking. And I was
Yeah.
like, Claudia, what are you saying?
Yeah.
So thank God for Black culture and hip hop and all of that, and all the
Yes.
guys that have really empowered our people to fight the norm and acknowledge our power. Because I do thrive off of stuff like that too.
Yeah, totally. And to voice it, right? And to be able to articulate it and process it too.
Cardi B, like all these people. I think we talked about that too. I'm like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
they're very
Yeah. Yeah. Very
inspirational.
bold and yeah, and just very real about it, and it's
Yeah,
okay. And just the opportunity to be able to showcase, these accomplishments and these milestones, and they just set the tone also for other milestones that you're going to reach because you still have, more
yeah,
to
yeah. I know.
accomplish
I
as
met
you
Mark
move forward.
Anthony, and I was like, okay, now what? That's like the highest point.
Yeah. Exactly. Talk about what's important, right? You balance it.
Yeah. Like now what?
Yeah. Yeah. And so now in this position, I know that now you're sitting on certain boards and you're chairing committees and ERGs and all of this. It's like opened up all these other, responsibilities that now, have fallen on your lap. And that I know that you're glad to take on. And so what do you see? I want to leave for, with now that you're in this C-suite position, right? And that you have some, access, to part of this decision making process. And that's power right there, right? What are some of the voids, that you
Mhm, mhm.
feel that you can help fill or influence finding solutions for? I put you on the spot, Claudia. I know,
No,
but
no, no. I
I
was
know
thinking
that you
that's a
know what you
fantastic
want to
question.
focus on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, well, I'm like out of all.
Yeah. Out of all of that, I know it's a long list, but yeah.
No, that's a really great question. I think what's happening is that, and we kind of touched on it, but there is a big disconnect, and you actually said it very beautifully when we met. Um, that I have admitted that back in the day when I, didn't have a lot of exposure to, and I'll say like white people, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt very uncomfortable. And so I've acknowledged that on my own end, that I myself could feel uncomfortable and that they themselves could feel uncomfortable
Hmm.
because they don't know what to do or say.
Hmm.
So so the word you used was, you got to have grace, right? Sometimes you have to have grace when you're approaching this different phase that we're entering, that's become more uh visible, of the importance of having inclusion, right?
Hmm.
And so the void exists in the fact that we need to acknowledge on both our parts that we have to build bridges, that we have more in common than not. I have, and working again with people, it's very easy for me to constantly connect with people. I will always, for the most part, and there's people that absolutely don't deserve any of my time, but for the most part, that you can connect with, that that you will share some similarity. In any part of the world that you go, everybody wants to feel loved, everybody wants to live that way. And so, what does that mean to people and finding those common grounds, which is we're all, human. And so, I think understanding that is extremely important, and having that education of like, this common ground is as simple as it sounds, the void that's missing.
Mm, yeah. And so hopefully, not hopefully, I know that in your new role, you'll be able to represent, yes,
Yay!
Latinas,
In the house.
women of color. Yeah, in those spaces you're in, because you're literally leading many of these tables too, like you're not
Yeah.
only just at the table or being invited at the table, you're actually leading the dance, right? So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm like so grateful that Alex introduced us, that we became fast friends, and that
Yeah.
this is just the beginning, of exploring, how we can work together to make impact, because that's the other thing, right? It's like cross state, cross regional initiatives. I mean, if we band together, we're going to be able to amplify this kind of representation, in leadership roles, and really work to make things more equitable across the board. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for hopping on this call today. I'm so excited that, because I know you're really busy, so I'm so excited that you were able to come on and have this conversation with me, and I hope that we can have like a repeat soon too.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think you're magical and amazing, and I really want to thank you also for your support and having me
Yes,
on.
always, always. Tú cuentas conmigo para lo que sea. You can count on me for
Gracias.
whatever.
Igualmente, I know. Me too. I'm like,
Okay,
if I had
okay.
another kid, I'd give it to your name it is Sammy. Like, what more can I give you?
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, Claudia?
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Thank you.
okay. Bye. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.